From Expo Center at Expo 86,
Misha
and Dianne are watching week 95 of Santa Barbara. Yes, that's right. It's week 95 of Misha and Dianne Watch Santa Barbara.
Hello.
We have toured a number of expo sites to do those introductions, and some are still standing, and some have fallen down or been torn down. I think we're lucky to get the Plaza of Nations in a few weeks because that is being redeveloped as well. We just saw an episode of Family Feud with Lost in Space versus Gilligan's Island. So we saw Russell Johnson, our former Santa Barbara castmate, and as we learned from the Russell Johnson spotlight a few weeks ago, future castmate as well. Is a different character. Last week on Hill Street Blues, the Life and Times of Dominic Florio Jr., we saw Robert Thaler, Pearl, as a reporter. Mm-hmm. And last night we saw James Hong on Falcon Crest, episode 217, Love, Honor, and Obey. And I finally realized that Cole's, what's his name's girlfriend was being played by Maggie Cooper from Space Academy. For the last few weeks, I hadn't recognized her. And of course, on Wednesdays we watched St. Elsewhere, and Priscilla Merill, who plays Mother Isabel on Santa Barbara, was on as a nun. On St. Elsewhere, episode 3.01, Playing God. So she's played at least two nuns that we know of.
She's got a type.
Also in that episode was Brian Tochi from Space Academy. So that was two Space Academy people in one weekend. Of course, we just watched Space Academy this morning, the final episode of the series, starring Ty Henderson, who... I was keeping it as back a little bit, has left Santa Barbara 2 episodes ago. Last Thursday was the last time we will ever have seen Sam Williams, but I thought it might spoil a little bit that Dylan was on his way out a window, so I held it back. Those of you who watch our alternating episodes where we did spotlights will have... seen my spotlight on Sam Williams, on Ty Henderson, that was released October 8th, which is this day we're recording right now. And you may have heard me say episode 458 there, but hopefully by that point it wouldn't be too spoilery in that context. And of course, it's 1986, May 19th, and last night on Dallas... Pam and Mark got married. Sorry, Friday night on Dallas. Friday night on Dallas, Pam and Mark got married. We were all wondering if there was going to be another cliffhanger on the level of Who Shot JR, but it seemed to be a pretty bland episode, except for the next morning Pam woke up and found Bobby in her shower. So that was a bit of a surprise. Bobby, of course, died last year, so not sure what's going on. He said, "Hi, Pam," or "Morning, Pam," so I don't know if it's an evil twin or what's going on.
It's almost like the whole last season was a dream or something.
What? We'll find out in about 4 or 5 months, I guess, when the show restarts in September. And that is it for the housekeeping. And now on to episode 460 of Santa Barbara, originally aired Monday, May 19th. Ooh, we're 1 day shy of May the 20th, which is usually the most exciting day of sweeps. Let's start with the most boring story, in my opinion. Mary tells Mark that she slept with Mason and asks for an annulment. Mark tells Mary, "Good news, I can have sex again." Mark asks her for another chance. Mason asks Mary to move into his old room. I think he's half joking, but she really pulls back, and she says, "Oh, I just had a long talk with Mark, and he pulled out all the stops." And Mason is worried that she has changed her mind. Mm-hmm. She says, "Well, I'm not going to walk out of a marriage and into an affair." at which point Mason asks her to marry him. Gina and Cruz. Cruz asks Gina why she told Brandon to stay away from Uncle Kirk. Cruz tells her that he thinks there is no kidnapper, just Kirk. He tells her that the notes from the blackmailer and the notes from the person who lured Eden to the boathouse were typed on the same typewriter, and it was the one that was found in Gina's room. So if anyone is going to take the fall, it is Gina. And Gina replies, well, the blackmailer probably put that typewriter in my room. Gina manages to elude all of the police in the Capwell Hotel and calls Haley and asks her to bring Cece's gun and some bullets. When Haley arrives, she did not bring the gun, which might be for the best. Gina gets it in her head that perhaps Eden is the one person who can help her. Now, Eden is not in this episode. She's been sent out of town by Cruz, but Gina is hanging around the front desk at one point and overhears the concierge speaking to Miss Capwell in the presidential suite. Not realizing it is Kelly, she assumes Eden is up there. During this entire episode, Kirk is actually looking for Gina, and Gina manages to elude him. He spots Haley at one point, but doesn't appear like he's gotten onto where Gina is, but possibly he'll figure it out. There's only so many floors on that hotel. Kelly asks Dylan to put the gun away. Dylan calls Nick at the Capwell atrium with the next clue. Kelly shouts for Nicky not to come! Dylan tells Kelly that Nick won't want her anymore when Nick catches them making love. For a guy who's nothing like Peter Flint, he sure does like to copy a lot of Peter Flint's moves.
Yeah, and throughout this episode, we see him kind of ricocheting between, trying to act like a lover to Kelly and threatening her, which is very Peter Flint as well.
Mm-hmm. Room service arrives and with a trolley of food that Kelly had ordered, and Dylan threatens Kelly basically by grabbing her neck or her arm or something, and manages to keep her from raising the alarm while the server is in the room. Setting the stage. Back to Cruz. He tells Santana that Brandon knows that Gina is alive. Cruz tells his men to watch Kirk, because Kirk is skulking around the hotel looking for Gina. Nick arrives to tell Cruz that Dylan has totally flipped. Santana arrives to make sure that Cruz doesn't use Brandon in his plans with Gina. Kirk tells Santana she looks nervous. Perhaps she's seeing another man. Then a process server shows up, and Santana and Cruz get to witness Kirk being served with divorce papers. I think this might be enough to put Kirk over the edge, but this is not his psycho episode. This is Dylan's episode.
You must have noticed, though, that this was probably very satisfying for Cruz.
Yes, it was. They're standing in the lobby hanging out, and Gina's, skulking around at the time, trying to avoid being seen going in and out of elevators, and the fact that Santana is there, may make her a bit worried that Eden will be free. Kirk decides to focus on the more important thing, which is Gina. He tells Cruz that Gina is unreliable and might change her story on the witness stand, which Cruz thinks of as the fact that Kirk might be threatening her. Back up in the presidential suite, Dylan is looking at the food that's been delivered. Oh, quail and endive salad. That's my favorite. Dylan asks Kelly if she's absolutely sure she's forgotten Peter. And she says yes. And he says, well, if you can forget a psycho like that, you can easily forget Nick. Dylan decides this would be a good time to pull his gun out. And he says Nick is going to have to go the same way Peter had to go. I think we're in full Psycho Dylan mode now. Dylan covers Kelly's mouth as he reads Nick the final clue over the phone. And then, while he's momentarily distracted with the phone, Kelly picks up a champagne bottle to smash it over Dylan's head. But he blocks the blow and pushes her towards the couch. He pulls his gun again and says that he's destroyed his whole life for her. He's lost the casino and the ability to walk. You've taken everything, except me. We finally got a chance to get even with Nick. All that's left is to play out the game the way I've set it up. Kelly says no. Dylan tries to kiss her forcibly, and Dylan says, I don't want to hurt you. All I want to do is love you. I don't want to force you. Now, if you'll promise me that you won't yell, I'll let you go. She nods and he lets go, and Kelly screams. Gina! Hears the screams and knocks on the door. Kelly shouts, He's got a gun! Dylan approaches Kelly, but she manages to keep the room service trolley in between them, and as he tries to get around it, she keeps the cart in between them, and finally has enough of his advances and pushes the trolley towards him, knocking him off balance backwards, straight through the 8th floor window of the Capwell Hotel.
And I actually had to have you replay this because I couldn't quite figure out how he ended up through the window. It's actually very subtle that it's Kelly pushing the trolley that puts him through.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say it's surprising that the Capwell Hotel is so shoddily built because I certainly hope I never fall against a window in this apartment, and that has the same effect.
Yeah, because you kind of expect them to be strong. Pretty much the only thing I remembered about the entire summer of this year is that Dylan goes out the window. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I've seen it. I don't know if it's because I saw this episode or the start of the next one, or if they replay it a bunch of times in the future, because we have got a Canadian holiday coming up in a week. So if they replay it next Monday, that may have been how I was able to actually see it. But I do remember being a bit confused by the whole thing, so I'm pretty sure I wasn't aware of the trolley. And certainly if you just saw a clip later on of just that bit, you might not realize there was a trolley there either, because it was kind of behind a wall and the couch was in the way, and there were curtains everywhere. But yeah, definitely, and the second thing that is surprising is that just falling against a window would do that. Part of it is likely Dylan's injury, that he lost his balance, right, to make that part more believable. So really the only suspicious part is why the window was so weak.
Yeah, I think it logistically would have made more sense if the window had been open. But clearly then you wouldn't have the exciting glass shattering, right?
The exciting stunt of going through a window.
Yeah.
I wonder if building that heavy restaurant on top of the 8th floor has put unexpected pressure on all the windows on the 8th floor that's causing them to snap. Like these display cases from IKEA or elsewhere that have been known to snap because people have tightened the screws too tightly on the top thing, and it actually puts pressure on all the glass, and then people have reported waking up in the middle of the night to an extremely loud smashing sound, and it's one of the panels has shattered. So maybe we can blame the Orient Express on some of that.
Or CC decided to save money building the hotel and had the glass made out of sugar.
We know about all of his dodgy things that people keep suing him about, his negligent things. Maybe he cheaped out on that. Interesting.
But it was very satisfying to see the demise of Dylan. I assume it's his demise. It didn't look the way he was falling out. I'm not expecting to see him sort of hanging onto a ledge just because he went out backwards. No, I don't know how high the hotel room is, so it's possible that he might survive
8 stories, it's pretty high. The fact that the only thing I remembered is that Dylan went out a window, is why I was so obsessed with Kelly moving to the third floor a few weeks ago, because I hadn't remembered that it was from the Capitol Hotel, and I thought, oh, that's why they moved her up to the third floor, so it'll be believable when she pushes Dylan out the window that it's going to be, a non-survivable fall, right? And so that's why I thought they moved her. And then, of course, when they started setting up this thing with the camera last week, I thought, oh, no, it's going to happen here. So don't know why they bothered moving Kelly from the first floor to the third floor, except for that balcony stuff with Justin. I guess they want him to have this cool thing of climbing in through a balcony window. So anyway, I got the two things conflated. So I pretty much don't remember anything else about the next 4 months, I think, except a bit of the Ted stuff. If he does start working at the radio station this year, then I'll remember a little bit about that. But I have no idea how the Kirk thing will play out. I now know what happens to Gina after seeing this episode. So I don't know if you can guess, but I think we'll find out pretty quickly this week. Something exciting happens.
I have to admit I was surprised, which maybe is a good thing, that the Dylan, kind of getting his just desserts came so quickly. I had pictured some kind of a scene of Dylan and Nick dueling each other on the roof of the Capitol Hotel, or, of course, I had also been anticipating something to do with the casino.
Yeah, I'm wondering if... Yeah, I don't remember how the casino winds down, but I don't think they keep it for the next 8 years. So.
No, so that was the thing that surprised me, and that it happened so fast. And although it was very dramatic, him bursting out of the window, as I said, it was a bit hard to catch what had happened, and the trolley seemed like kind of a small, fragile little thing to have actually had that effect. So
I think just her giving it a push combined with his being, unable to use his one leg properly. Because the way they were setting it up with, Nick being threatened and Kelly being kidnapped, it was somewhat similar to when Peter had everyone hostage in the Perkins house, and that went on, I think, it feels like it went on several episodes, and then Joe ended up, dying because of that. So that's the kind of scenario that I was envisioning. But maybe the writers did that on purpose.
Yeah.
They tried to give us a pattern that we were familiar with, so we would think we would know, how things were going to go, and then pull the rug out from under us with this going out the window thing. I must say it's one of the more memorable scenes of the 9 years the show was on the air.
The other thing, I think you mentioned to me, and probably mentioned on the broadcast as well, is that, it was well known that Robin Wright didn't really get along very well with the actor who played Dylan, and had wanted him off the show perhaps a little earlier than the writers had planned on. So it's interesting to speculate at, maybe if the writers were planning to draw it out a little more, or at what point they made the decision that this is when Dylan needed to go.
Mm-hmm. It seems like, they just kept Sam for a couple episodes past it, 3-month contract or 3-month renewal, so that he could deliver the news that Dylan has a gun, basically. We'll see if Justin continues to be in the mix after all this bit is over, but we've probably got some cleanup to do, both on the sidewalk below and in Kelly's head. And tomorrow is May the 20th, so I would not get in any elevators if I were in the Capitol Hotel, but it looks like half the cast is in that hotel. So we will be back after we watch Tuesday, May the 20th episode of Santa Barbara, episode 461. We will see you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 461 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Tuesday, May the 20th, 1986. And it's May the 20th, so someone always has an eventful journey down from the 8th floor of the Capwell Hotel. But first, Mary and Mark. Mark hides Mary's suitcases and tries to make her have a drink with him. And then makes her talk to him for the whole episode. Finally, she tells him she is leaving, and he asks for a goodbye hug, which turns into a creepy goodbye kiss, and she tells him to stop it.
I feel like my prediction might be coming true. I hope not.
I think some of the weird music in the background might indicate you could be right. Ted tells Kirk that someone came looking for him earlier, and Kirk gets really angry because that was the process server that served him the divorce papers. Ted, of course, didn't realize that, and blunders on up to Cruz and Cece and says, "Hey, have you heard Eden's getting a divorce?" Then they all hear a crash outside, and someone from the hotel across the street phones to say there's a fight on the 8th floor of the Capwell Hotel. Kelly pushes Dylan out the window, and he falls 8 stories to the ground below, shouting, "Kelly!" Gina remembers she has a key to the presidential suite and lets herself in. She sees Dylan's body and at first thinks it's Kirk, because she was expecting Kirk and Eden to be in that suite. She sees the gun and tells Kelly it would not be good for her if they catch her with it, and helpfully puts it in her purse. That's nice. And then she tries to convince Kelly to go on the run with her. But Kelly is basically in shock and nonverbal. So Gina runs, and just as she gets outside, Nick gets out of the elevator. So Gina quickly uses her key again to unlock the door to the linen closet. So that's interesting that she has a key for that. Maybe she got more keys made in her spare time just in case she needs it. She watches Nick and Kelly talking and realizes that it was Dylan that had fallen down to the ground. And Kelly tells Nick that she killed him because he was going to kill all those girls. Cruz arrives to say that Dylan is still alive, and everyone runs out to the front of the hotel. And Kelly sees Peter instead of Dylan. And Peter has a couple of lines to Kelly. Nice to see Peter again. And then Cruz agrees to let Cece take Kelly home, even though there's already some indication that Kelly could be in trouble. Dylan tells Nick that he's a good brother. He says, "Kelly loved him too. She had to kill me." And Dylan dies. The couple from across the street arrive to say that they saw Kelly push Dylan out the door. They say door, so maybe there's a door there. But then there would be a balcony, so still weird. But they didn't see any gun in Dylan's hand when Cruz pushes for further information.
Now, thinking about this as someone who lives in a high-rise apartment, they must have been watching with binoculars, because it's not actually that easy to see into a place, even run right across the street. And it certainly wouldn't be easy to trace whether they've got a little gun in their hand or not. So I think they were peepers. I
think so. They mentioned the name of the hotel, but I didn't quite get it. But it's something like the Dilbert Hotel or something. Gina notices the camera right next to her and realizes that it has been recording and that she would be on tape picking up the gun, and therefore, for her own best interests, she takes the tape as well.
Now, remember, Gina was put in the presidential suite, and she kind of knew it was a two-way mirror, and I think probably suspected that something like that was going on. So I think maybe that partly explains why she maybe knew to go into that room, and maybe even why she had a key for it. Maybe she had spent an earlier time seeking out that key, because she was going to pop in there later anyway and check it out to see if they were still spying. So there's no real shock from her or anything that this equipment is there.
Haley arrives, and in the elevator, Gina is holding the elevator open for some reason. I can't remember the logic of it. And as they're chatting, Kirk comes up from the other elevator and hears them in there and listens to them. And even as the doors close, Gina still has her finger on the button. So they're still on that floor, and Kirk can still make out most of what they're saying. And basically the gist is that Eden called, and Haley had given the phone number to Cruz, but she still remembers the phone number. And just as she's about to give it to Gina, the elevator goes down and Kirk doesn't get it. Kirk follows them to the bus station, where Gina hides the tape in a locker. So now Haley is aware that Gina has a tape of some kind. Kirk does not spot that because he arrives a little later, but they see Kirk and don't let on that they know he's there. And Gina makes a big show out of buying a bus ticket for San Diego and either getting on the bus or pretending to get on the bus. But when she comes back in, she tells Haley that Kirk is following the bus all the way to San Diego. So that tape, obviously, did you predict that? Did you see that as the big twist in this Dylan story, that Gina would end up with this tape and the gun?
No, I didn't. And I guess with Gina, there's always a complication. But it's kind of interesting that Gina's now in a position of really holding the key to both Kelly and Eden's situation.
Right, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
So she's actually not because of any great humanitarian effort on her part, but she has actually managed to stumble into a very key position in at least two plots.
And this storage locker is very helpful to put this story on hold for a while on Gina's end, because she is going to look for Eden, and I assume we will see some Gina, Eden, Kirk stuff in the coming days to progress the Kirk story along, maybe even wrap it up before returning to deal with a character who is a main character. So the family comes home, and Mason says he's been fielding calls all evening from reporters, and they keep asking about Dylan Hartley, and he doesn't know anything. Cece tells him to keep pretending he doesn't know anything, and tells him what happened. So Kelly says, Peter came. I didn't want him there. She also has a flashback to when Peter sat up, from the Dylan being covered by a blanket scene. And I think he actually said different lines to her that time.
Yeah.
He only said like 2 lines, and then this time I'm like, oh, neither of those sort of ring about. So either I totally blacked them out, or he actually said 2 different lines in the flashback, which is kind of funny. Ted brings Mason his case file, all about the Peter Flint case, and shows Kelly the newspaper article of Peter's death. And Kelly just says, take it away. So yeah, Kelly has been pretty comatose, pretty traumatized and shell-shocked this whole episode. And where do you think that is leading us?
I think if she is, and if it does end up with her being brought to trial or whatever, her mental condition will play a role in it. And I think, we were speculating about whether we would see her neighbor again. And I think that maybe hints that we might, because remember, he is a psychiatrist. So he could testify quite a bit to her condition.
Nick and Cruz fail to find Dylan's gun. They turn that place upside down. Cruz also then discovers that the surveillance tape in the linen closet is missing. Yeah, the first thing he noticed was that the door was unlocked. So he was a bit annoyed by that already, and then seeing the tape missing. So he had kind of a very annoyed look on his face.
But I think that now he knows it's maybe a little more complicated, because in her condition, there's no way Kelly would have gone into the other room and removed the tape and somehow gotten rid of the gun. He knows there's a gun out there that they can't find. He knows there was a tape there that is now gone. And Kelly is, basically in a trance. She's basically at a psychotic break, so she wouldn't have been able to do any of it. So that will lead him to a lot of different areas of investigation, I think.
I mean, maybe he might even suspect Kirk. But then he might quickly think, wait a minute, maybe Gina. Because they were looking for her, and, maybe he knew she still had a key. Cruz phones to find out if the surveillance on the linen closet had been stopped, but finds out definitely the order was never issued to stop the surveillance. And this may explain why there was an active tape in there. Presumably an officer comes in every couple of hours and puts in a fresh tape. All these times we saw it was just in between tape changes. So there may be some 3 tapes of Kelly getting ready for dinner, but the last segment is the missing one. An officer brings Cruz all of Dylan's personal effects and also hands them a warrant from the DA to arrest Kelly Capwell. So we may be seeing DA Tony Patterson again. Haven't seen him in a while since he was the last Capwell he tried to put away. Ted, or was there someone in between?
Well, and we know he's busy working away on Madeline's murder as well, which I think has probably been forgotten in all of this.
I know, they've actually got a lot of things juggling. We've got storylines that could go horribly awry with Mark, David, Kirk, and Dylan. And of course, Dylan had a pretty spectacular ending. I don't think they could top that with any of these other 3. I think this will be our memorable event of the year. But, there's always the August sweeps.
Oh, and we still got to figure out how that casino's going to...
Yes, maybe 4th of July will go terribly wrong. Yeah. And we'll put fireworks on that casino, on that oil rig. So now it looks like, once again, Cruz will be put in the position of arresting a member of the Capwell family, because he's been handed it. So we'll see how vehemently Tony Patterson pushes for this. He might have had enough of these Capwells, and he might go psycho and get to join Kelly's psycho gazebo of weirdos. Haley unexpectedly is grabbed by Kirk at the Capwell house. He says, I only followed that bus for one stop, and then I checked, and Gina wasn't there. And he's pretty threatening and trying to get that phone number from her, but luckily it's in the Capwell atrium, and Cece walks in, and they both actually pretend nothing's wrong, because Haley still doesn't want to admit being Gina's niece and knowing where Gina is. So anyway, Kirk takes a pencil and makes a pencil rubbing of the phone message that Haley took earlier. And lo and behold, it says, Cruz, call Eden, and then the phone number. So now Kirk has the phone number of where Eden is. And Nick arrives at the house with some news that Dylan is dead, and he demands to see Kelly. And we see Kelly at the top of the stairs, and Nick goes to her and they hug. But Kelly is pretty nonverbal for much of this episode, and seems to be very confused whenever someone says the name Dylan, because she's focused on thinking that it was Peter that she saw. So I imagine Cruz will show up early in the next episode to arrest Kelly, and no one will know where that gun or that tape is if Gina's out of town for a while looking for Eden.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Of course, we've already commented on the fact that Kelly is quite obviously not well. She seems to be quite catatonic, and it will be interesting just how much they can make that charge stick. I mean, as we've said, her neighbor's a psychiatrist, so there is actually a wealth of evidence about her mental state. There's her obvious present state. And, I mean, would she even really take in that they were arresting her or reading her rights or whatever? So there will be lots for Mason to play with if he ends up defending her in court.
Now, this seems to be a revisit of last year's Joe and Peter death storyline, but it seems to have been ramped up a bit because I think even though she was kind of having headaches and things, I don't think it was ever quite this bad, and so I don't know. Maybe this is a way to permanently deal with that for Kelly, or if it's going to be an ongoing thing where every time a psycho tries to kill her or kill her beau of the time, she will have a breakdown again. We'll see. That is it for the plot, and we can happily say this is the last time we'll ever see Dylan Hartley. But sadly, it was also the last time we'll ever see Peter Flint. So, bit surprising, because you'd think, with her hallucination, thinking it was Peter, that maybe for the next few days we'd see him or he'd talk to her again.
Yeah.
But no, that was it. It was just those two little interactions, possibly the same scene twice. So, although I was so happy to see Stephen Meadows again, I felt like now, I knew which episodes he'd be in, and each time his appearances were so limited. Sometimes even just no dialogue, just standing there in a tuxedo. So, a bit disappointed by that, knowing that that's the last time we'll see one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And then, as we've talked about, when they let someone go off the payroll, they almost immediately introduce someone else, usually, onto the payroll. So we've lost Sam, who's like a secondary character a little while back. Amy's off the payroll. And now Dylan, who will be, as major as Amy. So I expect at least one major male and one major female to be introduced soon. And did we even have a replacement for Madeline, or maybe that was a short-term thing all along?
And I don't think we really had a replacement for Janice, did we?
No. But I don't think she was ever in the main credits, really. I think she was always just in the second section. So I don't know if there's a line item budget for that slot. But I think they've got, at least 2 or 3 salaries that they might need to use soon. So we'll see what characters get introduced, and see if my theory that they usually replace a male with a male and a female with a female. And they quite often replace the person in the storyline, too. So with Dylan gone, I expect they will hire a male who will be interacting with Kelly. That's the theory I'm working with. And then with Amy gone, a female interacting with Nick, although I think they let her go just because they ran out of story. So they may have that. They may decide to go a totally different way with it. That's it for episode 461. Another May the 20th. Done and dusted. And we will be back after we watch the Wednesday, May 21st episode 462. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 462 of Santa Barbara, originally aired Wednesday, May 21st, 1986. And before we start, we saw Stella Stevens on Heck Ramsey. We had such a bad copy that you wouldn't have realized it was Stella Stevens if you hadn't seen it in the credits. I don't know if you even realized it. She'll be appearing on Santa Barbara in a few years as a character I can't name because it's a spoiler.
And this was a historic week in soap operas. Another milestone was passed with the airing of the first 3-way on Days of Our Lives.
Yeah, that's true. It was surprisingly a long scene. Today is October 13th as we're taping this, by the way. Back in California at Stevie Stone's one-stop service station, Gina pretends to be a police officer when Stevie spots her gun and manages to find out where Eden is hiding. She tells Eden that Kirk is the one who tried to kill them, and Eden is worried that she might have been followed. Gina gets Eden to promise not to press charges and to help her get Brandon if she plays the tape that she made of Kirk confessing. But when Eden finds out that Gina pulled the plug on Cece, she says, "Oh, you're going to jail." Gina says she did it out of mercy. And anyway, you didn't have to go along with Kirk's plan to cover everything up.
Which is a fair point.
Mm-hmm. Gina says, "I saved your life. Think about that. I'm asking you to save mine." She asks Eden to listen to the tape first before she makes any decisions. So that escalated pretty quickly. The episode started with Gina, arriving at the gas station already, and very quickly found Eden. There aren't too many options apparently on this road, so you just got to know which way to go. Nick, Mason, and Cece talk to Kelly. She thinks Nick is Joe, and that Dylan was Peter. Nick says they should call in Justin Moore. He's a psychiatrist that Kelly knows. Capwell lawyer George shows up to observe as Cruz questions Kelly. Kelly says he was going to kill Nick, but she fails to answer Cruz's questions about whether or not Dylan had a gun. The DA phones to insist that Cruz arrest Kelly, and Cruz ends up reading her rights. At the police station, Justin insists she is way too confused to be questioned, but some guy we've never seen before from the DA's office, who's got gray hair just like George, and is not, Michael Cavanaugh, who we saw as the DA last time, says that he thinks he has enough evidence to charge Kelly with murder. Must be another assistant DA, I guess.
Yes, now we should mention that we were speculating last time about whether Mason would be taking on Kelly's case, but of course he's working for the DA's office now, so he actually has to recuse himself of involvement with it.
Judge Amanda Conway is brought in to set bail, and guess what? She's played by Catherine Lee Scott, who I had no idea was in Santa Barbara. And of course, back in the 80s, I never have heard of her before because I didn't get to see Dark Shadows until 1996 when I was living in Seattle. So she presides over the hearing, and Cece tries to strong-arm her at one point, saying he got her elected, and he can get her unelected, and she threatens to have him removed from the courtroom. So she's not having these shenanigans from Cece, no matter how much he contributed to her election. Kelly tells the judge that he threatened her with a gun. He'd already killed all those girls. He killed Joe. I'm glad Peter's dead. And without really any prompting, I think the judge realizes immediately that Kelly's totally, rambling, because she must know, the history of the Capwell family and know that Peter and Joe are not involved in this current episode. So the judge orders her to be taken to the psychiatric ward of the county hospital, which Cece is really against. Even earlier when Justin was brought in, Justin was suggesting that maybe they could file an injunction or something, and immediately Cece cottoned on that he wanted to declare her mentally unfit or unsound or something, and he's against that. So he was really angry that she's now been ordered into the psychiatric ward of the hospital.
Now, I think here we are seeing, as we have many times in this show, Cece's ego maybe getting the better of him a little bit, because I think we're agreed that Kelly is not well, regardless of the circumstances, and I'm pretty confident that that tape will be recovered in time for her trial, or will show up eventually, but I think it's not necessarily unreasonable for her to get some psychiatric care, and that could actually work for her trial.
It could even delay the start of her trial. Till the next sweeps.
Yes, exactly.
Kelly does not want to go, but Justin says that Nick and he will visit her. So, as she's being let out, very confused and distraught, photographers are waiting to snap her photo. And Cece yells at them for being the vultures that they are. So yes, I guess we will see maybe Justin at work at the psychiatric ward of the hospital. Cruz, while he's there, tries to find out if the DA's office has any idea what happened to those tapes in the linen closet. So, no luck. Mark rapes Mary, as you had predicted, and she goes to the Capwell house, but can't bring herself to tell Mason what happened. But she does tell Mother Isabel, and when Mark tries to come and talk to her, Mother Isabel shouts at him and gets him to go away. Mm-hmm. Mason finds Mark at the guest house and asks him why Mary is such a wreck. And Mark says, if you want her, you can have her. I suspect this conversation may escalate in the next episode.
Yes, I think so. And I think eventually Mason will find out what did happen to Mary, and I don't think things will be pretty for Mark at that point. Mm-hmm.
Cece tries to reach Eden, but the phones are out due to a construction mishap, which Kirk overhears and says, oh, where is Eden, by the way? Cece shuts him down. In fact, this is at the point when Cruz is questioning Kelly, and Cece suggests maybe Kirk can go out and find this Dr. Moore that Nick was asking about. And Kirk tells him to get lost. He throws the divorce papers down and says, these are my walking papers. I'm very glad to be rid of this damn family. And Cece follows up, as he often does with this surprising thing he's got in his back pocket. You were happy to take a job that pays you twice what you're worth. So all these scenes, where Cece's being chummy with Kirk and offering him a job that seems sort of above board, all had this undercurrent that Cece knows that he's only getting the job because he's marrying Eden.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing the adding up of all these many, many times where Kirk has kind of put off Cece, hasn't been available for meetings, has been off doing whatever when he's supposed to be running a casino or, Cece's been taking note of this all the way along.
Cece's been surprisingly understanding about it the whole time, but if I guess we kind of count the whole job as a charity case, we can see that's just, more of the same that, probably took a lot of bad work from Peter, too, when he was engaged to Kelly.
I almost hesitate to say this, but I actually think Peter did a bit better job of running the Capwell Hotel than Kirk has done on any of his endeavors.
Yeah, that could well be. Kirk says that Cece is nothing but a selfish joke and Mason is nothing but a drunk. And then Cece lunges at him and grabs for his throat, I guess. And Kirk says, you leave a scar on me and I'll sue you for $1 million. Reminds me of my little chart of all the scarring Kirk has already endured at the hands of the Capwell orbit. So I wonder if that's any foreshadowing. Already lost his heart. Cruz decides to pile on with, I'm going to make sure you end up in prison. And Kirk says, for what? And I think really, right now there is no evidence against him. He may be right about that. So, Cece tells him to clear his things out of the mansion and the office by morning. You came here nobody, and that's how you're leaving. Kirk calls the phone number on the note paper that he had earlier found and talks to Stevie Stone, proprietor of the Stevie Stone gas station. And Stevie remembers Gina's warning not to tell anyone where Eden is because it could be a matter of life and death. And he pretends not to know Eden. But Kirk thinks something's up and shows up again, pretending to be a different guy. He goes, are you the guy from before? What? No, I'm from the phone company. Where's this accident that's knocked out our phone lines? I guess he figures rightly that Eden must be somewhere near the accident site if her phone's been cut. So that's pretty clever. And Stevie says it's up near the aquarium. Ooh, so we didn't hear the word aquarium when Eden was there, when Gina was there, but now we know there's an aquarium nearby. Kirk sneaks up to the house Eden is staying in, just as Gina is playing Eden the tape. So, of our three psychos, Dylan's gone off the building. How do you think things will end for Kirk? Run out of town? No, sneak out of town, go to jail, die. What was my fourth option? Get off scot-free, I guess. Those are the four.
Well, I think we're being set up for him to have another heart attack at some point because, when things get going, he does start kind of clutching his chest a bit. So I feel like that's going to be the mix. Now, whether that actually kills him or not, or leads to something else, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the things of this summer's episodes that I have no memory of, so I'll be interested to see how things go. What about Mark? Get away with it, go to jail, sneak out of town, or die?
I'm kind of guessing he might sneak out of town. And the only reason I think that might be the case is because of what he actually said this episode where he's done with Mary. So I feel like he's not got an interest in stalking her anymore. Like he's conquered her. He's broken her, and he's kind of gotten what he wanted out of that. Ultimately at the end, he seems to have gotten what he wanted.
Wasn't he talking about taking a job offer back east a few days ago? So yeah, he could split town just like Ginger did. Although Ginger slinked back unexpectedly. And Kirk's heart thing is being played up. So we'll see. Yeah, Mark I don't remember either. So yeah, we'll see. That's about it for this episode. So we'll be back after we watch episode 463. See you then.
Bye-bye.
The family comes first always.
Hey, find yourself another boy, Cece. Look, as of tonight, I'm out of here, all right? Those are my walking papers. Eden had them sent to me.
Well, I can't say that I'm shocked. I can't say I disapprove.
Oh, really? Well, nobody is happier about it than I am. I'm very glad to be rid of this damn family.
Well, you didn't seem to mind it too much when you moved in and I gave you a job paying you twice what you're worth.
Okay. I'm so tired. I am so tired of this loving patriarch father routine of yours, Cece. You are nothing but a selfish old joke. And you are nothing but a damn drunk. And Eden is just another tramp. And don't you ever say that? You leave a scar on me and I will sue you for $1 million. I hate the day I met Eden and the rest of this family. You thought that you could chew me up and spit me out.
You take whatever little things you've got and get out of this house. You came here a nobody. You're still one, and that's how you're leaving.
Welcome back.
Hello.
We finished episode 463 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Thursday, May 22nd, 1985. And last night, wasn't that an amazing season finale of Dynasty? Alexis took over the mansion and Blake strangled her. Will Alexis survive? We'll find out in September. That was season 6, episode 31. At work at the Math Assistance Center, I found that I can't really watch TV after all because Another World comes on at 1 o'clock, and we close from 12 to 1 for lunch. And so a whole lot of people seem to schedule their tests right at 1 o'clock. So we're super busy at the worst time. So
Stupids.
so I'm not sure if I'm going to tape Another World or Santa Barbara at home. So that may explain why some of this summer is not a memory for me, because I may have been taping Another World for a while before September, when I would have probably had cable again and watched Santa Barbara starting in September. But I do remember some of Ted's storylines, so there must have been a bit of recording. Back in 1986, reporters surround Courtney to find out what's going on with Kelly, and they shed a whole bunch of impertinent leading questions at her. Like, why did she lure him to her hotel room? Cece is very angry that no one is allowed to see Kelly, including him. Pearl continues to decipher Madeline's day planner, and he tells Julia that Madeline was meeting with someone she called L squared. Pearl wonders, could it be Lionel Luckridge? Julia doesn't think so at first. So Pearl pretends to be an art buyer and sets up a meeting with this unlikely name of Johnny Ventura or something like that. Sets up a meeting with Lionel at the Orient Express. There he spots Lionel with the exact same type of day planner Madeline had, which is kind of funny. He enlists Courtney to distract Lionel while he steals the book. Courtney comes along and spills a glass of water on Lionel. They compare the dates on which Lionel met with L squared, on which Madeline met with L squared, and only to find that in Lionel's book all those times are blank. But then Pearl thinks maybe he erased them and holds it up to the sun and sees an impression, and they both can make out the word Madeline. So I think Lionel probably should have gotten a new date book, copied all his notes into there, leaving out the incriminating ones, and burned the original.
Yeah, it's weird that he and Madeline decided to get identical books. Yeah.
Well, that makes me think, like, what if Grant Capwell was actually behind it? And he has this team that was working against Cece, which included Madeline and Lionel, and he presented them all with these day planners in the initial, meeting to plan out the scheme or something like that. Branded with the plot to steal Capwell Enterprises from Cece.
Now, it has to be said, maybe I missed something, but I didn't really detect Lionel noticing his book missing.
He did. He did reach for his pocket right at the end of the scene, which was the last scene he was in that episode, if I'm not mistaken. So he knows it's gone. And I guess he suspects Courtney. He didn't see Pearl at all. Augusta and Julia have lunch at the Orient Express, and Julia works on David's case, which Augusta says she's doing far too much work on. Augusta has flowers and a card for Sophia, but keeps, that information a secret. Lionel assumes that the flowers were ones that Augusta received, and he sneaks a look at the card, and sees that it says "Get well," and Augusta says, "Oh, my old friend has a sense of humor." Lionel then says, "Oh, a friend of mine saw you at the hospital the other day. Is something wrong with you?" So Lionel initially thinks that Augusta may be ill. David steals a flower from Augusta's bouquet and gives it to Julia. She tells him they need to come up with another suspect. He says, "Oh, I'm tired of working on the case. Let's just hang out." So, no idea how this is going. No idea if David's the killer. Can't really figure that out. It's not a front burner story during the sweeps. We have 3 other psychos, so maybe this David thing is going to drag out for another 3 months till the next sweeps.
Yeah, I think it was an interesting conversation between Augusta and Julia, because Augusta basically accuses Julia of being more interested in David as a potential love interest than just, pursuing a lawyer-client relationship. And certainly the next scene where David's basically saying, "Oh, let's forget about the case and just hang out," that certainly seems to indicate they're going as much in that direction as in the legal direction.
Let's see if it goes better for Julia than Jack Stamfield Lee did. After her first round of chemotherapy, Sophia learns about Kelly's arrest. Augusta brings her the flowers. Sophia and Cece disagree about Kelly seeing a psychiatrist. So Sophia says, if it weren't for psychiatrists, I would have never come out of my really bad situation.
Although I was thinking it was actually her psychiatrist who then put her in a worse situation.
Well, she was in that hospital in Alaska before Marcello found her. So they presumably helped her somewhat there before Marcello came to bring her into the Armonti family, none of whom we've seen. Cece tells her that he just wants his whole family under one roof. My kids, and then he stops, realizing that he might be thinking about her.
No, we're not sure that includes Mason.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Lionel starts to wonder why Sophia and Augusta have been so chummy, and when they all go back to the Orient Express, Lionel directly asks Sophia if she is ill. He's put those things together.
And I just kept, I'm actually really enjoying what's developed between Augusta and Sophia. And I just keep hoping Lionel doesn't wreck it.
Yeah, this would be nice to have that they have. Well, remember we thought Gina and Augusta might become friends briefly, but that never happened. This makes me think of my idea that they should do the Real Housewives of Santa Barbara with the characters of the show. Cruz suddenly realizes that no one has seen Kirk for a while. His secretary says he hasn't been in for 2 days. No one seems to have told Cruz that Kirk's been fired from Capricorn Enterprises and kicked out of the house. I think the people he talks to are Courtney and Pearl, so they might not be aware of what happened last night. Cruz calls his old friend Sheriff Tom to check in on Eden. Kirk sneaks into the garage of the safe house and punctures the tire on Gina's car, and then gets to work on Eden's car. So he doesn't just barge right in like we thought he might. He's got things planned. He also suddenly has a rifle in his hand when he's in the garage. So Eden listens to the tape over and over. Gina finally asks her if she's finally going to agree not to prosecute her. And Eden says that everything that's happened to her, losing Cruz, being married to Kirk, it's all Gina's fault. So she still wants Gina to go to jail. Well, guess what? Gina has Dylan's gun in her purse, and she pulls it on Eden. And Eden says, if you kill me, they're going to look for you. And she says, I'll just fake my death again. Eden does point out, well, what about Brandon? Gina leaves, only to find that her tire has been punctured, and returns to get the keys to Eden's car. The tires, to my surprise, were fine on Eden's car. She backed out of the garage. No, she didn't. She did the clicker and went forward out of the garage. I thought, maybe she'll realize that the tire's been flattened, while she's driving. But what she does actually, in fact, notice is that the brakes are out. So Kirk had actually tampered with Eden's brakes. And within half a second of her noticing this, we see Eden's car going off a cliff and plunging into the depths below. So, is Gina dead?
No. We've seen her in bloopers.
Oh, that's
way ahead. So.
Did she leap out of the car at the last second? But if she's alive, is she thinking, everyone thinks I'm dead? I just told Eden I was going to fake my death. I should just go ahead with it. And we might not see Gina for months or years. And unfortunately for Eden, that means there's no one there who can rescue her from what's about to happen. Kirk has a rifle. He surprises Eden and tells her that Gina is dead. He plays back the tape and tells Eden that now she has to die. Eden tries to tell him that she wasn't really having an affair with Cruz, but Kirk says that she's ruined his whole life. A lot of people have had their whole life ruined this
Yeah,
month.
we've heard this same refrain from our other two psychos.
He said, I used to just be focused on business and I never loved anyone before. The sheriff arrives, but Kirk tells Eden that if she doesn't send him away, he will kill both of them. So Eden says, everything's fine. Tell Cruz not to come up here. Kirk sort of taunts her for trying to save Cruz by keeping him away. He tells Eden that he's going to have her go over the cliff, just like Gina. And Eden manages to pull away from him and smash a vase over his head and run out of the house. Kirk picks up the rifle and fires, but unfortunately nothing happens when he pulls the trigger. It jams or He's flustered and he's got the safety off, or something else is wrong. But he throws the gun down and runs after Eden. No thought to any heart problems or weakness at this point. When the sheriff reports back to Cruz, Cruz knows something is wrong when he hears that Eden didn't want him to come up. Cruz questions Stevie Stone and finds that both Gina and Kirk were up there asking about Eden. Cruz arrives at the safe house and finds Kirk's rifle on the floor. But he also finds the tape. And he puts it into the player and listens to Gina and Kirk talking about how they tried to kill Eden. He should really get up there. Look for Eden, really. Aqualand! We find out the name of the aquarium that was teased in the previous episode, and we are on location at some sort of a marine park, apparently. We didn't see much of it, nothing marine-like, really. We saw the front gates with an Aqualand sign, which I don't think is real, because every Aqualand I can find is in Europe. Unless it's an old one.
It didn't look like the one, I think we saw some sort of aquarium featured several years ago when we were working our way through the Mod Squad, and it didn't look like that one to me.
No, it looked much more
in Los Angeles.
new.
Yeah.
So we see Eden climb over a fence because it is closed. And we see Kirk climb over the fence. Once again, no heart issues, but all this exertion may come at a cost. We see Eden running around, and she decides to run up a circular ramp. Presumably that goes up to an attraction of some kind. They have at Aqualand. That's probably where people queue up. But when she gets to the top of the platform, somehow Kirk is up there. I don't know if there was an elevator option that he had, or if he climbed a ladder or some stairs at a much greater pace than her. But he's on a bit of a raised platform above her, and he leaps down onto her, and the scene cuts to slow motion, and it's there are so few frames in it that it looks like just a bunch of photos, and there's a very weird donk, donk, donk music over top of the frames.
Are they over the Shark Tank?
Oh, Shark Tank. Oh, that's probably... I was wondering why Aqualand, but now that you say sharks, that's probably... I can see him turning into a James Bond villain in the next episode and dangling Eden over a Shark Tank, only for Cruz to burst in and rescue her.
Now, I don't think they would have, something big and scary like a great white in an aquarium, but they might have, something slightly sinister, like a tiger shark or something, perhaps.
It's a dolphin tank.
It's a dogfish.
I thought those were sharks, Kirk will say. So that is our cliffhanger for the episode, and tomorrow's a Friday episode, so I think the Aqualand Adventures might be the funnest part of the next episode. Don't know if we'll see Kelly for a while. They may, wait a few days so that she's settled in at the nut house where she is. Oh no, she's at the hospital currently. Tonight, the season finale of The Colbys and Falcon Crest, which normally is on Fridays. So don't know why it's on a Thursday this year. I'll double check my dates. But anyway. We'll talk about that just at the beginning of the next episode after we watch episode 464 of Santa Barbara. We'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Man, I'll tell you, it's like one thing after another lately. I mean, the family hasn't even had a chance to adjust to a Madeline's dead. And boom, this. Huh. Did you happen to know her?
Well, I may have seen her from a distance once or twice.
Well, I'll tell you what, you didn't miss much. Could you get that, please?
Oh, I like this. Now I'm taking orders from the butler?
Welcome back!
Hello.
We finished episode 464 of Santa Barbara, which originally aired Friday, May the 23rd, 1986. And Mason gets Judge Conway to allow visitors to Kelly. We do not see Catherine Lee Scott again. We hear Mason on the phone. At first, the doctor doesn't want to let anyone in, saying, I haven't heard from the judge. And Mason says, I just did it. So anyway, they let Sophia and Cece in, and eventually Nick comes in. And Kelly is like in and out of whether or not she killed Peter or whether Joe is still alive. At one point, she calls Nick Joe, but then she has some flashes of herself pushing Dylan, and then agrees it was Dylan. And Nick thinks, "Oh yeah, okay, that's good. She's coming back to reality." But then she suddenly, obviously, that's the thing that caused the trauma. So she immediately goes back to saying, "No, I killed Peter. He had a gun." And then she starts calling Nick Joe. So she goes around in circles during this conversation of knowing who Nick is and thinking he's Joe, and knowing who Peter is and who Dylan is. So it's made clear in this episode that this is a different hospital than the other one, because Sophia is actually at the other hospital, and Cece actually has to send Pearl to go and get her at the one we're familiar with. So this was specifically called the State Hospital Psychiatric Ward. So presuming the other one is some sort of city hospital, the one we're more familiar with. So I guess maybe we will meet some of the doctors at this hospital. Hopefully none of them has a name that starts with an R.
Yeah, there's all kinds of, one flew over the cuckoo's nest possibilities of things that could happen to Kelly when she's put in a mental institution.
We will see if it's smooth sailing in this soap opera psychiatric ward. Lionel and Sophia have continue that conversation. Eventually, Sophia does reveal to Lionel that she had cancer, but it's over. I'm just having chemo. Don't talk about it. I don't want to tell my family. And then Lionel and Augusta get together, and Lionel goes, "Oh, we got to get her to tell her family." And Augusta's like, "How do you even know? How did you wheedle that out of her?"
Yeah, I think, we're kind of used to Augusta being the sort of abrasive one who kind of barges in, but here it's very much Lionel who kind of pushes his way in, and we see him push his way into things with Cece and with Kelly's situation too. He's just kind of in everyone's face this episode.
Cece's pretty annoyed that when Pearl brings. Does Pearl bring Sophia and Lionel? Is that how Lionel gets there to the hospital?
Well,
or does he just show up?
No, I was kind of. It was weird actually, because Pearl was actually advocating. Sophia was like, "Oh no, I don't think you should come," and then Pearl jumped in and said,
that's right.
"Oh no, I can take him." And I was trying to figure out what was going on, and then I realized this is an opportunity for Pearl to interrogate Lionel a little bit.
That's right. Cece took his own car to see Kelly and sent Pearl to pick up Sophia at the other hospital. And Pearl found her with Lionel and sort of pushed for Lionel to come along. So then Cece's very angry to see Lionel there. And he says, "I'll take you home, Sophia." And then Pearl says, "May I drive Mr. Lockridge home?" So now Pearl and Lionel are alone in the car, and he says, throughout the episode, he says things like, "Oh, now that you're divorced, you're probably seeing a lot of ladies, maybe some leggy blonde or some high society types." And Lionel seems completely put out by Pearl's probing question. I don't know if Lionel realizes that Pearl is actually asking these questions because of Madeline, or if he thinks Pearl's just too nosy.
And Pearl does take it to the limits. He follows Lionel into a cafe and sits down with them and continues on from there. There was one rather priceless line, and I can't quite remember what Lionel says, but he says something to Pearl about being the kind of person who wants to keep his affairs private. And I thought that was very funny, considering that Lionel spent the better part of the first season on television talking about his impotence.
That's right. Mason sees Mary has been very upset by Mark. Mother Isabel is still there with her. Mark keeps trying to see Mary. Mother Isabel, says, "I know what you did to her. Just leave her alone." Mason, at the end of the episode is holding Mary and almost seems like she's about to tell him. Mother Isabel here's her earlier just telling Mark to, I don't want you in my life anymore. So, she'll be a good advocate, I think.
I think so.
Cruz gets a call that they have found Eden's car at the bottom of a cliff. So that's pretty troubling. We see the scene again where he finds the rifle and the tape, and then we see him out looking for Eden. And we see him in the garage, seeing that Gina's car has a flat and Eden's car is gone. So I presume it's our sheriff friend from last episode that calls in to say they found Eden's car at the bottom of a cliff. Of course, he's going to assume it's Eden at first. No sign of Gina. We presumably will find out if anyone's in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe those photos you've seen in the future are Gina's twin sister, Nina. Aqualand. We see Eden running from Kirk for most of the episode. We get to see some more bits of Aqualand. Kirk actually, at the beginning when he jumps on Eden, he actually kind of grips his head in pain, and that's how Eden gets away from him originally. And they end up in the shark holding tank area of the park. So they actually end up in you know how aquariums have all those underground grotto type things, right? It kind of looked like a Land of the Lost set, but much more brightly lit for a while. Eden does manage to spray him with a fire extinguisher at one point, but that does very little. She should have bashed him in the head with it. I don't know why she just dropped it and ran. But he catches up with her at the shark holding area and says, "Oh, yes, this will do. I can get rid of you, and they'll never find any trace of you." So, I think was it you who brought up the sharks last time? And I think he'll turn into a Bond villain.
We see the sort of shadows of the sharks underneath.
Yeah, they show some sharks underneath.
They don't look like great whites, but they're probably
Definitely
dangerous.
sharky, and there's multiple ones. So they may swarm or whatever sharks do.
Although I assume that they are fairly well fed, being in an aquarium, so they might just ignore Eden.
Let me just check on my notes here about the Colbys cliffhanger. Jason and Zach struggle for the gun, and Sable ends up getting shot. It was last night on the Colbys. And Falcon Crest, I'm showing a date of May 22nd here. Maybe that's wrong. An earthquake rips through the Tuscany Valley. Ooh. Who will live? Who will die?
Now, it's funny because we watched all of the Colbys together. I remember very little about the series, except that it descended to the point where what's-her-name was abducted by aliens. Fallen, I guess. And, of course, we haven't gotten that far with Falcon Crest yet.
This is the Season 5, Episode 29 cliffhanger. We're only currently watching, almost done Season 2. So, we don't even know who the characters will be on the show come then. We just watched an episode where it looks like one of the more annoying characters has died in a car crash. We'll see if that comes true, but we still have, I think, 2 before the Season 2 finale. So that's about it for the 1986 May cliffhangers. Hotel, I checked to see. I didn't even know if Hotel actually had cliffhangers. So it says Christine leaves the St. Gregory, but I don't know if that's a cliffhanger. Moonlighting didn't seem to have a cliffhanger this year, nor did Miami Vice. And St. Elsewhere had their Doctor of the Year awards in their finale, which probably wasn't really cliffhangery. But I think in general they always made little jokes about, some meta jokes about the fact that St. Elsewhere was always on the verge of being cancelled, and St. Eligius was always on the verge of being closed. So that's it for our cliffhangers. We will find out when we get to September of '86 how those turned out for the various shows. And that is it for this week of Santa Barbara. We had some credits. Cast hasn't really changed, the main cast. And we have Peter Flint for the last time in the little addendum to the credits. Steve Meadows is how he's billed here, not Stephen. Mother Isabel, Priscilla Morrill, psychiatrist Ronan Morrill. And I thought, I wonder if that
interesting.
was her husband. But quick IMDb check, it doesn't appear to be her husband. Maybe it's her brother or something, or maybe it's just a coincidence. We had two Morills in the same episode. Dr. Peterson, who is, of course, Sophia's doctor, is played by Jeffrey A. Chandler. And so next week we will see if our psychos that remain get their comeuppance, or leave town, or go to jail, or get some divine retribution when we come back for week 96 of Santa Barbara. See you then.
Bye-bye.
Well, I guess I ruined your noble gesture by living there.